In December 2018, 38 Wim Hof Method instructors climbed a mountain without their shirts on. As they approached the final ascent to the summit, an ice storm rolled in and covered the entire group in freezing rain. 3 instructors descended into hypothermia and might have died if it weren't for heroic rescue efforts by other instructors on the mountain and then a lift to safety by mountain search and rescue. After it was over, the CEO of Innerfire, the company that runs the Wim Hof Method, covered up the near disaster and convinced the media that it wasn't a Wim Hof Method expedition at all. They lied and pinned the whole affair on a rival company. This is the story of that near disaster and Innerfire's penchant to put its own reputation above the truth.
It's a sensationalistic story of 38 instructors in training in shorts getting into a near-death situation up on a mountain.
That's Steven Posner, a Wim Hof Method instructor who was on Mount Sniezka that day. He's one of 4 instructors that I interviewed about what happened, but the only one who was willing to have his face on video. In order to get their instructor certification from Innerfire, candidates had to complete a 4-day training course at the Hof compound in Poland, capped off by climbing up the nearby Mount Sniezka with most of their skin exposed to the elements. This is basically the same training I did back in 2013, but mountain weather can be unpredictable and can change fast. On December 3rd, a cold front was moving in along with a prediction of freezing rain at altitude. At first, the trip went well enough. It was cold, but nothing the crew couldn't handle. But when they reach the midpoint, a yellow house before the climb gets really steep, a cloud blew in over the mountain and started icing over the entire path.
It was nasty. I mean, it was frozen rain, very strong winds. Supposedly they clocked at 70 or 80 kilometers an hour. I mean, that's powerful, powerful wind.
The instructors and expedition leaders assessed the situation and bet that they could still make it through the final steep section to a former observatory at the top where they could all warm up before coming back down. It turned out to be the wrong call. The group split up in the fog, and soon all communication broke down. Worse than that, a lot of people didn't pack crampons, and thick black ice covered the path so that no one could get traction.
So it was ice everywhere. And so people were falling on this jaggedy, rocky path, blood running down people's legs.
Progress was almost impossible. Eventually, someone made the call to abort and meet at the hut down below. The only problem was that the path was so slick that some people couldn't move at all. Others were getting hypothermic and incoherent.
There was this one gal that was just sitting on the ground, still with no jacket on, with nothing, with a huge smile on her face, kind of.
This was a bad sign. Euphoria is one of the last stages before people go unconscious from the cold. After that, death is just a short stop away. But as luck would have it, the photographer who came along on the trip also happened to be an experienced wilderness survivalist. He brought the lady down on his back, and instructors pulled together and got everyone off the mountain to safety. Everyone met up at the yellow house and warmed up. Isabel Hoff, Wim Hof's daughter, called search and rescue to bring the 3 most severely injured people down. The euphoric lady's body temperature had fallen to just 86 degrees. That's 30 degrees Celsius. And the clinical definition of hypothermia is 95 degrees or 35 Celsius. This was bad.
It could have been way worse for everybody. So people could have died.
But luckily, they didn't. On one level, this wasn't so different from what happened to me when I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with Wim back in 2015, also without a shirt. On the final ascent, Wim told everyone to skip lunch so we could make some sort of record. It was a bad call. There was a mutiny when he sprinted up the mountain without us, and expressly against the advice of the mountain guides we had with us. I followed reluctantly. We had a little disagreement about an hour ago, and most of the group stayed behind. They wanted lunch, which you can't really blame them. We made it to Gilman's Point, but, as I wrote in What Doesn't Kill Us, the specter of our rash decision could have turned out very differently. In my book, I tried to balance the madness of following Wim up the mountain in dangerous conditions against the lessons I ultimately learned. But in the case of Sniezka in 2018, Innerfire's reaction was very different. As the group recovered and commiserated about how close they came to disaster that evening, they discussed the idea of putting out a press release to tell the media that there had been a close call, but that everything ultimately turned out okay. Wim Hof must have realized that a story of an entire expedition of Wim Hof instructors almost dying during their winter training session would not look good for the company. So, Wim started to spin the story. His first move was to issue a media blackout.
From Wim, orders: do not talk to the press.
Now, even this might have been okay, but the obscurification did not stop there, because eventually the media did learn about it. That's when Wim Hof crossed a line. He discovered that a charity event with another group of shirtless hikers was scheduled for that weekend, and he told everyone in the group to convince the media that it was that group, not the official Wim Hof Method group, that ran into trouble.
What we were told to say is it was Mountain Rescue was called for that group.
This did not sit well with Posner or the other instructors.
It's like, you're telling us to lie to the press and to put a muzzle on us?
He was, and it worked.
My name is Maciej Szyszka. I'm a breathing trainer and a physiotherapist. Next day, television come to my house and stuff like this. So it was really bad. It is hard to even imagine.
Maciej had no idea what was happening when Polish television crews arrived on his doorstep. After all, his group hadn't even started yet. Within minutes of the TV story, his phone started ringing off the hook as the 250 people who signed up for his expedition wanted to know if he was going to put them in danger. The money that he was raising for a sick child was suddenly in jeopardy.
They put it on me.
Eventually, I heard rumors about a Wim Hof group getting into trouble, and I posted a link to the news article on the Wim Hof Method Facebook group asking if anyone knew what was going on. 15 minutes later, I got a message that my post was removed and I had been banned from the community. I was confused, as I was only trying to figure out what had happened. So I messaged Wim on WhatsApp, and he sent me 13 screens of information claiming that my journalism was irresponsible and that it was this other group that had gotten into trouble all along. He fingered Maciej, and I'll include a link to all of the screenshots below if you want to see his exact words. Now, I was never planning to write a big story on the event, and Wim convinced me to write a piece that mirrored his own spun story. And now I posted it on Facebook, and I didn't realize that I was pinning the tragedy on the wrong guy altogether. I didn't realize I was a pawn in Wim's cover-up. I reached out to Wim over email to comment on what I found during my reporting. He responded with this: "You have follow-up questions with lies supporting them. They make no sense. This is not journalism, but just dumb, silly actions of yours. You should be ashamed of yourself. I didn't lie to get success. I am honest. I give you honest answers and have nothing to hide. You, at the other hand, just come with lies to try to get a reaction of me. This will be the last time I spend some energy on you personally. I just checked your videos, and the only way to get views is to use our name. That's because of our work and dedication you profited from a lot. Don't you feel embarrassed that you cannot get views of your own in your own ways? Do something constructive, man. You're just sinking lower and lower. Just a little free advice for you. You can decide for yourself what you think the truth really is. So, those are the facts. Let's zoom out now to a 10,000-foot view and ask, why is this important? Mountains are unpredictable. Things happen. I get it. After this was all over, there weren't any long-term injuries other than a few minor cases of frostbite and some traumatic memories. There were even some silver linings for the people who went through it. Most of the people who I spoke with who were there said the rescue operation was an important learning experience that taught them about the limits of human physiology in stressful conditions. Now I get that too, because I had the same realization on my own adventures with Wim. As Wim says, in the battle of man versus nature, nature will always win. Going through events like these can be an important way to learn what that battlefield looks like. As I understand it, even Innerfire learned from their mistakes and now issues new safety requirements and requires people to carry crampons. They also started doing their expeditions at another nearby mountain that has less unpredictable weather and is a little less technical. So that, well, it's all positive. The real issue for me isn't the fact that there was a rescue, but that Innerfire covered it up. Einem lied, and he told other people to lie on his behalf. Not only that, but Einem didn't stop at just denying something happened, but actively sought out a rival business and said that it was them all along. The press, including me, wrote stories saying that Maciej's group was ill-prepared and was putting people's lives in danger. This hurt Maciej's ability to raise money for a charity to help a sick child, all to save just a little face for Innerfire and the Wim Hof Method in general. I don't like liars, and I don't like bullies. And an organization that blames other people for its own mistakes is not an organization that anyone should invest their own trust into. As I've said in other videos, I believe that Einem Hof is not fit to run Innerfire in his father's name and should step down. I think he should discontinue his attempts to silence journalism in the public interest, like issuing almost 20 complaints against this channel to get me taken off the internet. Instead, he should realize that it's important to tell the truth. Everyone can learn from their own mistakes, but no one can learn from things they refuse to own up to. In all likelihood, Innerfire will do everything in its power to take this video offline. If you'd like to keep up to date with what's really happening, please subscribe to my newsletter so you can continue to get updates as Einem tries to bury the truth once again.